Pada Indonesia.
My name is Dea Aurelia Rahman.
My name is Rizma. My name is Revalindia Permata.
And let's begin to the presentation.
Okay, we go to the art one is introduction. So poetry often called the language of the soul. So why is called the language of the soul? Because it's a unique and powerful form of artistic expression that transcends the limitation of ordinary language. So it dives deep into the well of humanity, like emotion, expression, thought, or experience too. The poetry is capturing the essence of life in the way to resonate, with the readers on a proper level. So poetry is called poetry. So poetry is a distinct form of writing. It doesn't just tell about a story, but when you read a poem or something just like that, we are not just engaging our minds when we read it, right? So when we read it, we engaging our sense and heart too. Poetry have three elements in the inside. So the first is sounds, the second is physical, and the third is language. So these elements work together to create a more vivid and immersive experience for the reader. So in this presentation, we will explain one by one from sound elements to physical elements and language elements right now. So the next one will be continued by India.
So we're going to talk about sound elements. So sound elements in poetry are techniques used by poets to create musicality and rhythm. So the careful arrangement of auditory patterns. These elements are the aspects of poetry that can be heard when the poem is read aloud. So they include, first I'm going to talk about the rhyme. So a rhyme is when two or more words sound alike, and this often used in poetry, especially at the end of lines. The most common type we usually heard is a perfect rhyme. That is where the stressed part of the word and everything after them sounds exactly the same, like pencil and stencil. People usually call this just rhyme, but there are also other kinds too. And what I got here is perfect rhymes and imperfect rhymes. First, I'm gonna talk about perfect rhymes. Perfect rhymes is happen when the stressed syllable of two words and everything that comes over it sound exactly the same. For example, I will take words like compare and despair. The stress part, pair and spare, is sounds the same. Another example is plunder and thunder. Both words share the same sounds in their stress part or in the back of the words, which makes them a perfect rhyme. Now, I'm going to talk about imperfect rhymes. Imperfect rhymes is when the stressed syllable in one word rhymes with an unstressed syllable in another word. It's not an exact match, but still close. For example, we have up tone and pro. The tone part rhymes, but it's not a perfect fit. For another example, I have painting and rain. You can hear like they have a similarity, but it's a little off from being perfect. Next we're going to talk about alliteration. So alliteration is a poetry technique where words close to each other start with the same sound. This repetition of sounds creates rhythm and can enhance the mood or emphasis of the poem. For example, in the press, Sally sails by the seashore, the repeated word as sounds add musical quality and draws attention to the words. Next material will be explained by Rizma.
So we'll talk about rhythm. So let's start with the definition. Rhythm means
like the beat in music or the flow of words in poetry. It's all about patterns that repeat over time. In poetry, rhythm is the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables. It's basically the way certain syllables in a line are emphasized more than others. Creating a beat or flow just like music. This helps give the poem a certain vibe or tone. Let's start with the type of rhythm. The first one is IMB. IM. So an IM is a really common rhythm pattern in poetry. It's made up of two syllables. The first one is soft or unstressed, and the second one is stronger or stressed. It's like saying da dum da dum. If a poem uses these patterns a lot, we call it iambic. An example will be the line enjoy. We say EN is soft or unstressed. Enjoy. Yeah, like that. So that's it. The next one is Roshi. So this is the opposite of iambic. It's a pattern made up of two syllables. The first syllable is stressed, meaning we say it's stronger, and the second syllable in unstressed, so it's softer. For example, take the word happy. Happy. Yang P is softer, the half is stronger. Happy. Next is spondy. Spondy is when we have two stressed syllables in a row. This means that both syllables are said with the same amount of emphasis or strength. For example, sunshine. 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 We say it's all stronger. Sunshine. 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 The next is anapath. The pattern has three syllables in total. The first two syllables are unstressed and the third one is stressed. For example, understand. We say under in soft, understand. Understand. Do you understand? Yes. Okay, next is dactyl. Dactyl, which is pretty much the opposite of the anapath. It also has three syllables, but this time the first syllable is stressed or strong, and the next two are unstressed or soft. For the word beautiful, we say view is stronger and the full is soft, like beautiful. That's it. Next slide.
Okay, I will explain about onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. So what is onomatopoeia mean? So it's the use of words that imitate or suggest that's the sounds they describe. So it's usually is a powerful device that bring writing to a life. So by you mimicking like the sounds from the world around us, it creates a more vivid and engaging experience for the reader. So whether they can feel what is called, whether they can feel a sense of the action and immerse the reader into the moment. So let's take the example. The text provides an example from Edgar Allan Poe's The Bells. So Edgar Allan is masterfully put the onomatopoeia into the bells. So first one is brazier bells, sounds twanging and clanging. Now, while the silver bells sounds jingle and tinkle, or iron bells, it sounds tall. So, this use of onomatopoeia helps reader vividly imagine the unique sounds associated with each type of bell. So, it's help you to understand what it means. So, that's all about onomatopoeia.
Next. Okay.
Next, we're gonna talk about physical elements. So, physical elements in poetry is referred to the visual and structural aspect of a poem. These elements influence how a poem is read, interpreted, and visually perceived, and shaping the overall experience and impact of the poem. This is how the poem looks on the page. So that includes, next please. So we're gonna talk about line and stanza first. So line is a single row of words that ends in a specific way, often chosen by the poet of rhythm, meaning, or rhyme. Each line in the poem helps to shape the poem's overall structure and can emphasize certain words or ideas. The way line breaks can affect how poem sounds and feels. Next, stanza. Sorry. So stanza is a group of lines that are set off from other lines by a space. Stanzas often have a regular pattern of rhyme and rhythm, much like paragraphs in prose. They help organize the poem and contribute to its overall structure and meaning. Each stanza may explore a different idea or theme, like creating a sense of flow and division within the poem. A stanza has a big role in poem because it helps structure, rhythm, and the overall organization. Next, please. So as you can see, that is the difference of line and stanza. Next, the next material will be explained by Risma.
So let's talk about shape. So what is shape? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a poem where the words are written in a way that they actually form a physical shape. This shape could be simple, like triangle, moon, snowflake, and a tree. The point is that the shape of the poem is supposed to change its meaning. For example, it's Luna by Mary Summers. The shape is like a moon because it talks about nighttime and the serenity or the moon as a warm or reading present. So the shape of the moon really complements the content of the poem. Next slide. And next we'll talk about line breaks. It's simple. So line break is select words to create certain moods or to express particular ideas. For example, sight. He uses the word sight. This one word suggests that the speaker might feel rigor or mixed emotion about a decision they made. So just by analyzing one word, we can get a sense into deeper meaning of the poem. So diction can create mood, tone, atmosphere, and it can also show speaker characters and the setting of the poems. Okay, next we go to imagery. Imagery is all about creating mental in our mind. It's like visualize. This one. Okay. This imagery help us to see or feel what's happening in the poem by appealing to our sense, whether it's sight, sound, touch, taste, or smell. It helps the reader to visualize the poem. It's about visualize your mind. For example, he writes full truth is its mind. The present paints a picture of a peaceful summer days, filled with warmth and relaxation. Imagery like this make us feel more connected to the poem, almost as if we are experiencing it ourselves. Okay, we have experience. Okay, next. Okay, we go to figurative language. Finally, we have figurative language, which includes metaphors. Metaphors is a way of comparing things without using like or as. And metaphors and simile. Simile is compared to different things using word like and as. And then is personification. Personification is when you give human qualities to something that isn't human, like object, animals, or ideas. And for example is mirror. The title. Mirror. The title is mirror. It means like giving human-like qualities. The mirror observes and reflects the truth, which adds a deeper layer of meaning. The poem isn't just about mirror; it's about self-reflection and identifier. Tone. So what exactly is tone? Tone is basically the overall feeling or mood of a poem. It tells us how the poets want us to feel when we are reading. The tone can be happy, sad, angry, helpful, or anything else. Poets create tone through their own choice, the image they describe, and the use of figurative language like metaphors and simile. All these things work together to guide how we as readers emotionally respond to the poem. For example, from T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, the tone is one of our uncertainty and anxiety. The speaker is reflecting on their life, thinking about missed opportunities and important decisions they've made or haven't made.
Okay, we go to the conclusion. So by exploring these elements like sounds element, physical elements, and language elements, we get a deeper understanding how it's used in poetry. So we see how it's convey the meaning and emotion in poetry through these elements that can connect with readers on profound level, crafting poetry that is both impactful and memorable. So that's all about conclusion. You can meet before.
Okay,